So now we can go over to librs and begin creating our chat protocol. We want to implement going from the client and from the server. So we will create two enums, client and server. But the first thing we're going to do is add in a couple of use statements that we're going to need. So we need to add in Serde, and in here we want deserialize and serialize. We also want to use standard, sync, and arc. And then obviously bring in our utils. So now we can create our two enums. So we'll have our client enum, which is going to contain join. We're going to have a chat name of arc string, and then we're also going to have a post, which is going to be chat name and contain a message of an arc string. And then there we go. And now we want our server enum, which we're going to have a message, which will have a chat name, and then obviously it will have a message. And then we'll have an error containing a string. So we can make this a little bit more Rust format using cargo format, and you'll see that it'll automatically do it for us. So now let's test out our setup real quick to make sure we are sending and receiving messages in the JSON format like we wanted. So we can run test, and then we'll say test our client, and then in here we'll add a use statement. We'll use, and now we'll say let client equal client post, and then inside here we're going to have our chat name, which is going to be a new atomic reference counter, and we'll say string from, and we'll just call it chat, and then we'll have our message, which will also be a reference counted string from message sent. Alright, and now we'll create our JSON message using Serde JSON to string a reference to our client, and then we will unwrap it. And now we will assert equals JSON, and now we want to create a JSON formatted post manually, so we'll do that right here, and it will be post chat name chat. And now we have our message, which is message sent. Now we will add, there we go. And we will also do assert equals Serde JSON from string, so return it back from a JSON value, client JSON dot unwrap, and then make sure it matches our original message which we created here. And I want this to be a reference. Alright, so we see we have some squigglies here. So it says the trait-bound client serialize is not satisfied. So luckily this is something the compiler tells us, and it's actually a really easy fix for us to do. And it gave me all that. So now we want to derive a couple of traits. So we want to derive debug, just in case we want to print anything out to the standard output. We want to derive deserialize. We want to derive serialize. And since we're using assert equals, we actually also want to derive partial EQ for equality. That way it knows how to handle our assert equals in this case. And then I need to also add in 2 colons right there. So now if all this works correctly, we should be able to run cargo test, and it will compile all of our dependencies for us, which will take a second. But then once it's done compiling this and it runs our test cases, we should see that these outputted successfully, that they ran okay. And it did. So we passed our test client, which is great. So now we verified that we are creating a proper JSON from our message because we explicitly created a JSON formatted output of our message, but then we also made sure that when we want to go from JSON back to our string, it matches the original message, which we were able to confirm in this case. So now that we are done with that, we can begin working on setting up our client.